The huge space station floated in the dark between 3-star systems like a metal city built in empty space. Kim Tae-ho looked out through the thick glass windows at the endless stars and felt his heart beating faster. He was the only human on this station, surrounded by aliens who did not like his people very much. The meeting room was bigger than a football field, with seats arranged in circles that went up and up like a giant theater. Kim Tae-ho walked slowly to the center of the room, where a single chair waited for him. His black suit looked very small compared to the colorful robes and strange clothes worn by the alien leaders around him. High Chancellor Vexstar stood up from his golden throne at the highest level of the room. He was twice as tall as any human, with 4 arms that moved like tree branches in the wind. His skin looked like broken glass that changed colors when light hit it. Right now, it was glowing red, which Kim Tae-ho knew meant anger among his people. Chancellor spoke in a voice that sounded like thunder rolling across mountains. The translation device in Kim Tae-ho's ear turned the alien words into Korean, but the angry tone needed no translation. Human Ambassador Kim Tae-ho, you stand before the Council of 12 Worlds to answer for your species' crimes against the natural order. Kim Tae-ho kept his face calm even though his hands wanted to shake. He had been preparing for this day for 3 years, ever since the report started coming in about alien ships gathering at the edge of human space. The other ambassadors had warned him that something big was coming, but nobody expected it to be this serious. Around the room, 12 different alien species sat in their special chairs. Admiral Quintar of the Serpent People had scales that reflected the room lights like green mirrors. Her long neck swayed back and forth as she watched Kim Tae-ho with eyes that had no eyelids. The mining boss Horth looked like a walking rock pile with gems stuck in his gray skin that sparkled when he moved. Representative Kolves from the farm worlds had skin like tree bark and leaves growing from his shoulders that changed color with his mood. Right now they were turning black, which meant he was very upset. The trade master Zefti counted coins on his desk with 6-fingered hands, while his big round eyes never looked away from the human. Each alien looked different, but Kim Tae-ho could see they all felt the same way about humans. They were scared humans had grown too strong too fast, and now the old powers of the galaxy wanted to put them back in their place. Chancellor Vexstar raised all 4 of his arms for silence. The room became so quiet that Kim Tae-ho could hear the air recycling systems humming in the walls. For 200 years your people have spread across our galaxy like a disease. You take worlds that belong to others. You build ships faster than we can count them. You make deals that hurt our trade. Chancellor walked down the steps until he stood right in front of Kim Tae-ho. His crystal skin was now bright orange, which meant he was getting more angry. Your species is young and does not understand the way things work in this galaxy. There are rules that have kept peace for thousands of years, rules that humans ignore. Kim Tae-ho finally spoke, his voice steady and clear. What rules are those, Chancellor? Which laws have humans broken? Admiral Quinta hissed like a snake, and her forked tongue flicked out to taste the air. The rule that says new species must ask permission before taking more than 50 worlds. The law that says no single species can have more than 500 warships. The ancient agreement that trade routes belong to whoever claimed them first. Kim Tae-ho nodded slowly as if he was thinking about her words. But Admiral, we have never signed any treaty with these rules. How can we be held to laws we never agreed to follow? The questions seemed to make all 12 aliens angry at the same time. Mining boss Horth slammed his rocky fist on his desk, making a sound like breaking stone. Because these are the rules that keep the galaxy safe. Without them there would be chaos and war. Trade Master Zefti stopped counting his coins and looked up. You humans think you are special because you learn fast and fight well. But there have been other young species before they all learned to follow the rules. Or they were taught to follow them. The threat in those words was clear. Kim Tae-ho felt a cold feeling in his stomach, but he kept his face calm. And what happened to those species that refused to learn? Chancellor Vexstar's smile showed teeth like broken glass. Some learned wisdom and found their proper place in the galaxy. Others became examples of what happens when young species think they are stronger than they really are. The room fell silent again, and Kim Tae-ho realized this was not really a trial or a negotiation. It was a sentencing. The council had already decided what they wanted to do with humanity. This meeting was just to make it look official. Representative Kolves' leaves turned from black to dark red as he spoke. The Council of 12 Worlds has voted human expansion must stop immediately. You will give up all colonies beyond your first 57 worlds. You will destroy half of your war fleet. You will accept council observers on all your remaining planets. Kim Tae-ho felt like someone had punched him in the stomach. The aliens were demanding that humanity give up more than 200 worlds and thousands of ships. They wanted to turn humans into a small, weak species that could never threaten anyone again. And if we refuse? Kim Tae-ho asked, though he already knew the answer. Quintar's long neck curved as she leaned forward like a snake ready to strike. Then the 12 fleets of the Council will teach humanity the same lesson we have taught other stubborn species. We have 10,000 warships, human. We have weapons that can crack planets. We have armies that have conquered 100 worlds. The other aliens nodded and made sounds of agreement in their different languages. Kim Tae-ho looked around the room and saw that every single alien leader was united in this decision. They had been planning this for months, maybe years. Chancellor Vexstar, crystal skin shifted to a deep purple color, which meant he was enjoying himself. You have 30 days to begin withdrawing from your illegal colonies, 30 days to start destroying your excess warships, 30 days to accept council rule or face the consequences. Kim Tae-ho reached into his jacket and pulled out a small communication device. I need to send a message to my government. This is too big a decision for one person to make. The chancellor waved one of his four hands in a dismissive gesture. Of course, use the private communication room. But remember, Ambassador, 30 days. The council has been very patient with humanity, but that patience has limits. Guards escorted Kim Tae-ho to the communication room. He could hear the aliens already talking about how to divide up human worlds among themselves. They were so confident that humanity would surrender or be crushed that they were already planning what to do with human colonies in the small room filled with communication equipment. Kim Tae-ho activated the quantum transmitter that would send his message instantly across hundreds of light years to Earth. The screen flickered and then showed the familiar face of President Lee So-young sitting in her office in Seoul. Madam President, Kim Tae-ho said formally, the council has delivered their ultimatum. They want us to give up most of our colonies and half our fleet, or they will destroy us with their combined military might. President Lee's face remained calm, but Kim Tae-ho had worked with her long enough to see the fire building behind her dark eyes. How many ships do they claim to have? 10,000 warships from 12 different species. They seem very confident that we cannot resist such numbers. President Lee was quiet for a long moment, staring at something beyond the camera. Then she looked directly at Kim Tae-ho and spoke in a voice that made him straighten up unconsciously. Ambassador, please return to the council chamber and give them our answer. Tell them exactly what I am about to tell you. As President Lee began to speak, Kim Tae-ho felt his blood turn cold. The council thought they were threatening a weak young species. They had no idea what they had just awakened. Kim Tae-ho walked back into the huge meeting room with slow, steady steps. The alien leaders were talking loudly among themselves about which human worlds they wanted to take for their own people. They stopped talking when they saw him return. Admiral Quintar's tongue flicked out to taste the air like she could smell his fear. Chancellor Vexstar Crystal skin was now a bright, happy blue color as he called for silence in the room. The other aliens settled back into their chairs looking very pleased. With themselves, they thought the hard part was over. They thought humanity would surrender without a fight. Well, Ambassador Kim, the Chancellor said in his thunder voice, I trust your leaders have seen the wisdom in our generous offer. Will humanity accept the council's terms and avoid unnecessary bloodshed? Kim Tae-ho stood at the speaking platform in the center of the room and looked up at the circle of alien faces staring down at him. Some looked curious, others looked impatient, but all of them looked confident that they had already won this game. Honorable members of the council, Kim Tae-ho said in a clear voice, I have received Earth's official response to your ultimatum. Trade Masters FTI stopped counting his coins and leaned forward eagerly. And what does your government say? Human Kim Tae-ho's face remained perfectly calm as he delivered the message that would change everything. My government has instructed me to inform you that humanity respectfully declines your offer. The room went completely silent for 3 full seconds. Nobody moved, nobody breathed, nobody even blinked. Then suddenly every alien in the room started shouting at once. Chancellor Vexstar Crystal's skin flashed from blue to red so fast it looked like lightning. This is madness, bellowed mining boss Horth, slamming his rocky fists on his desk. Do you not understand what we are offering you? A chance to live instead of die. Representative Kolvez's leaves turned black as midnight as he stood up. Your species will be wiped from the galaxy. You cannot fight 12 fleets with your small human navy. Kim Tae-ho waited patiently for the shouting to die down. Then he spoke again in the same calm voice. My government also wishes me to share some information that may be relevant to your decision-making process. We have been monitoring your communications and military preparations for some time. The shouting stopped instantly. The room became so quiet that Kim Tae-ho could hear the heartbeats of the aliens closest to him. Several of them shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Admiral Quintar's long neck pulled back like a snake, ready to strike. For instance, Kim Tae-ho continued in a conversational tone, we are aware that Admiral Quintar's Serpent fleet has been experiencing significant problems with their hyperdrive systems. Approximately 60% of your ships are currently operating at reduced speed and power. Admiral Quintar's yellow eyes went wide with shock. That information was supposed to be secret, known only to her top commanders. How could humans possibly know about engine problems in her fleet? We also know, Kim Tae-ho went on, that Chancellor Vexstar home system is facing severe food shortages due to a plant disease that has affected your primary grain crops. This has led to riots on 7 of your 12 major colonies. The Chancellor Crystal's skin had turned pale white, which meant fear among his people. How could you possibly know that? He whispered. Kim Tae-ho smiled for the first time since entering the chamber. Because, honored council members, you've been fighting the last war while we have been preparing for the next one. Your fleets are impressive, but they rely on old tactics and outdated technology. Your intelligence services, while extensive, have been thoroughly compromised. Representative Zefti's voice cracked as he spoke. You speak of intelligence and technology, but numbers do not lie. Even with your knowledge of our weaknesses, you cannot overcome such odds. You are absolutely right, Kim Tae-ho agreed, which is why we will not be fighting your fleet. Confusion in the room was thick enough to cut with a knife. If humanity was not planning to fight, how could they possibly resist the combined might of 12 alien civilizations? Kim Tae-ho activated a holographic projector built into the speaking platform. The image that appeared showed a detailed map of the entire galaxy with trade routes highlighted in different colors. This is the galactic economy. As it exists today, notice how many of these routes pass through human-controlled space. The alien delegates studied the map with growing worry. Human space did not just connect to the major trade routes, it was positioned at several critical junctions, where multiple routes cross. 93% of all interstellar commerce passes through systems either controlled by humanity or requiring transit through human space. Kim Tae-ho explained, we have spent the past 50 years not just building colonies but positioning ourselves at the crossroads of galactic civilization. Chancellor Vextar was beginning to understand the trap his people had walked into. You are talking about an economic blockade. I'm talking about economic reality, Kim Tae-ho corrected. If you move against humanity, every trade route in this galaxy shuts down, every supply line gets cut, every economy collapses within days. The aliens looked at each other with growing panic. Admiral Quintar stood up so fast her chair fell over. You would destroy the entire galactic economy over this, Kim Tae-ho's smile grew wider. No, Admiral, you would, mining boss. Horthraki face twisted with anger. This is impossible. You cannot control all trade in the galaxy with just a few hundred world's trade masters. FT was frantically checking numbers on his personal computer. His six-fingered hands shook as he calculated the economic impact. He is right. The humans control every major trade junction. If they close their borders, our economies will collapse in less than a week. Representative Colver's leaves had turned a sickly yellow color. You are bluffing. No species would commit economic suicide just to avoid reasonable demands. Kim Tae-ho checked his wrist device with casual indifference. I believe you will find that assumption to be incorrect. In fact, my government anticipated your skepticism. Fleet Admiral Park Min-ho has been authorized to provide a small demonstration. As if summoned by his words, every communication device in the chamber began broadcasting an emergency signal. The main display screen activated, showing the image of a human woman in a pristine white naval uniform. Fleet Admiral Park Min-ho's stern features were framed by gray hair pulled back. In a severe style, greetings, council members. Admiral Park's voice filled the chamber. By now, Ambassador Kim has explained our position regarding your ultimatum. Some of you may believe humanity is engaging in empty threats. Allow me to correct this misconception. The image shifted to show a tactical display of the Kepler Trade Junction, one of the busiest commercial crossroads in the galaxy. Hundreds of ships from dozens of species move through the system in carefully organized patterns. Kepler Junction processes approximately 12,000 vessels per day. Admiral Park continued, the economic value of goods passing through this single system exceeds the total yearly income of most council member world's trade masters. FTI leaned forward anxiously. His merchant alliance had huge investments tied to Kepler Junction traffic. Any disruption there would bankrupt his people. As of this moment, Admiral Park announced Kepler Junction is under human military control. The tactical display updated to show the sudden appearance of human warships throughout the system. They had appeared from what looked like empty space using some form of advanced stealth technology that had made them invisible to all sensors. The reaction in the council chamber was immediate and dramatic. Several delegates began shouting at once, demanding explanations and making threats. Admiral Quintar's serpent features twisted with rage as she realized what this meant. This is an act of war, she hissed at Mel Park. Image remained calm and professional. On the contrary, Admiral, this is traffic control. No hostile actions have been taken against any vessels. However effective, immediately, all commercial traffic through human-controlled space is suspended pending resolution of the current diplomatic crisis. The chamber main display split to show multiple star systems at once. One by one, human fleets appeared in critical trade junctions throughout the galaxy. Systems that had shown no human presence moments before were suddenly full of Earth's ships. Chancellor Vextar found his voice, though it shook with strain. This is impossible. Our intelligence showed no human military buildup in these systems. Kim Tae-ho nodded approvingly. That would be because you were looking for traditional military assets. Fleet Admiral Park, perhaps you could explain our new strategic doctrine. Admiral Park's expression showed a hint of pride. Certainly, Ambassador. For the past 20 years, humanity has been developing what we call Ghost Fleet ships designed to operate completely undetected using advanced stealth technology and self-sufficient supply chains. They have been positioned throughout the galaxy waiting for activation. The tactical displays showed the true scope of human preparation. Ghost fleets were emerging from hiding places in asteroid fields, space clouds, and even the empty areas between star systems. The carefully planned network revealed humanity, true strategic genius. Every major trade route, every critical juncture, and every economic choke point in the galaxy is now under human control. Admiral Park continued, we estimate that complete economic paralysis will occur within 72 hours if current conditions continue. Representative Colvez raised a shaking appendage. Our people will starve if food shipments are halted. Then I suggest you convince your fellow council members to reconsider their position, Kim Tae-ho replied. 3 hours had passed since Fleet Admiral Park had taken control of the Kepler Junction, and the alien delegates were going crazy with panic. Representative Zeftai was on his 5th communication call with his home world while mining boss Horth kept smashing his rocky fists on his desk every few minutes. Chancellor Vextar, crystal skin had been cycling through different colors so fast it looked like a disco light show. His forearms waved around as he tried to get reports from his military commanders, who were all saying the same thing: they could not find the human ships until they wanted to be found. You, a bluffing representative, Horth declared for the 10th time, though his voice sounded less sure each time he said it. No species would commit economic suicide just to avoid reasonable demands. Your leaders will see sense when their own people start suffering. Kim Taeho checked his wrist device again and shook his head. I believe you will find that assumption incorrect. In fact, my government anticipated your continued skepticism. Fleet Admiral Park has been authorized to expand the demonstration before anyone could ask what that meant. Every screen in the chamber lit up with emergency broadcasts from across the galaxy. News reports were coming in from dozens of star systems, all saying the same terrifying thing: trade had stopped completely. The main display showed Admiral Park again, but this time she was standing on the bridge of a massive warship that none of the alien intelligence services had ever seen before. Behind her, through the bridge windows, they could see a fleet of similar ships stretching out into space. Council members, Admiral Park began. The demonstration phase has been expanded. As you can see, human forces have now taken control of 17 additional trade junctions. These include the Nexus Prime Commercial Hub, the Outer Rim Freight Corridor, and the Central Core Luxury Goods Route. Trade Master Zeftai made a choking sound as he realized what this meant. Those 3 routes alone handled 40% of all galactic commerce. His merchant alliance would be bankrupt within days. But how? Admiral Quintar hissed, her serpent neck weaving back and forth. How did you hide entire fleets in systems we monitor constantly? Admiral Park's slight smile was terrifying in its confidence. The answer is quite simple, Admiral. We did not hide them. We built them where you were looking but could not see them. The tactical display changed to show the construction history of human space over the past 20 years. What the aliens had thought were simple mining operations were revealed to be massive shipyards. What they had classified as research stations were actually military bases. What they had dismissed as civilian infrastructure was all designed for war. Every human colony established in the past 20 years included hidden manufacturing capabilities. Admiral Park explained every mining operation, every research station, every seemingly innocent installation was designed with dual purposes. You were watching us build the largest fleet in galactic history, and you classified it all as civilian development. Representative Colvez's leaves had turned completely black as the horrible truth sank in. You have been preparing for this since first contact, not for war, Kim Taeho corrected, but for this exact situation. We knew that eventually the established powers would try to limit human expansion. We simply made sure we would be ready when that day came. The display showed more horrifying details: cargo ships that could transform into warships in minutes, communications relays that were actually command centers, medical facilities that housed weapons manufacturing, mining platforms that could deploy battle fleets. The entire human civilian infrastructure was a military machine in disguise. Chancellor Vextar's voice cracked as he spoke. This level of deception, this long-term planning, it is impossible for such a young species. Admiral Park's expression remained professionally calm. Chancellor, your species have been playing galactic politics for thousands of years. You think in terms of centuries and millennia. Humans think differently. We plan for every possible the future, and we prepare for the worst-case scenario. The chamber erupted into arguments again, but this time the tone was different. Instead of angry threats, the aliens were making desperate pleas. Representative Zeftai stood up with his hands shaking. Admiral Park, please reconsider. The Merchant Alliance has done nothing to harm humanity. We have always supported fair trade with your people. Why punish innocent civilizations for the Council's actions? For the first time, Admiral Park's expression softened slightly. Representative Zeftai, you are correct. The Merchant Alliance has been fair to humanity, which is why your ships will be the first allowed to resume trade once this crisis is resolved. Hope flickered in Zeftai's eyes, but the other council members looked furious. Admiral Quintar slammed her fist on her desk. This is exactly what we feared. You are dividing us, turning our allies against each other. Kim Taeho shrugged. We are simply treating each species according to how they have treated us. Those who have been fair to humanity will be treated fairly in return. Those who have plotted against us will face the consequences of their choices. The display updated again to show real-time economic data from across the galaxy. Stock markets were crashing, currencies were becoming worthless, and supply shortages were beginning on dozens of world's mining boss. Horth studied the numbers with growing horror. Our refined metal reserves will be exhausted in 6 days without new shipments. Our manufacturing will stop completely. Representative Colvez was even more desperate. Our agricultural worlds depend on imported fertilizers and farming equipment. Without trade, our people will face famine within 2 weeks. Admiral Park nodded gravely. These are indeed serious concerns. However, the solution is simple. Withdraw the ultimatum against humanity and normal trade will resume immediately. Chancellor Vextar's skin flashed angry red again. Withdraw? You expect the council to surrender to blackmail? Kim Taeho raised an eyebrow. Chancellor, with respect, you were the ones who began this with blackmail. You threatened to destroy humanity if we did not submit to your demands. We are simply showing you the consequences of such threats. Tactical display showed another update. More human ghost fleets were revealing themselves in systems across the galaxy. Each new revelation showed the true scope of human preparation. The aliens had been watching humanity expand for decades, never realizing they were walking into the largest trap in galactic history. Admiral Quintar was studying her own tactical reports with growing desperation. My intelligence officers are reporting human ships and systems where we specifically verified no human presence just days ago. How is this possible? Admiral Park actually smiled this time. Admiral, your intelligence services are very good at finding things that want to be found. They are not equipped to detect things that are specifically designed to hide. Our ghost ships use technology. Your sensors cannot detect energy signatures that mimic natural phenomena, hull materials that bend sensor waves, communication systems that are completely undetectable. Trade Master Zeftai was frantically calculating numbers on multiple devices. The economic impact is exponential, he announced to the chamber. Every hour of delay increases the damage. Our recovery time will be measured in years, not months. Mining boss Horth rocky features showed cracks that indicated extreme stress among his people. Our mining guilds are already talking about switching to human-controlled trade routes permanently. They say human infrastructure is more reliable than our traditional systems. The admission sent shockwaves through the chamber. The aliens were beginning to realize that this crisis might permanently shift the balance of galactic power. Even if they resolved the immediate situation, humanity had demonstrated capabilities that changed everything. Representative Colves spoke in a quiet voice that somehow carried through the entire chamber. Admiral Park, how long can your ghost fleets maintain their positions? Admiral Park checked a display on her command console. Our logistics planning assumed a minimum operational period of 2 years without resupply. However, our manufacturing capabilities allow us to extend operations indefinitely if necessary. The silence that followed was deafening. 2 years. The human ghost fleets could maintain the blockade for 2 years while alien civilizations would collapse within weeks. Chancellor Vextar crystal skin had faded to a dull gray color, indicating defeat among his people. You have checkmated us. Kim Teho nodded respectfully. Chancellor, I prefer to think of it as showing you a new way to play the game, one where everyone can win if they choose cooperation over domination. But as the aliens looked around at each other, Kim Teho could see the damage was already done. The council unity was cracking. Some members were already thinking about making separate deals with humanity. Others were planning how to remove the leaders who had led them into this disaster. The demonstration had worked perfectly. Humanity had shown they could not be bullied. But the real question was, what would happen next? 5 days had passed since the crisis began, and the Grand Council chamber looked like a war zone. Half the alien delegates had already left to deal with emergencies on their home worlds. The ones who remained were exhausted, desperate, and turning on each other like hungry animals. Chancellor Vextar had not slept in 3 days, and his crystal skin kept shifting between sickly yellow and pale gray. His forearms shook as he tried to read the latest disaster reports. Food riots had started. On 12 worlds, 3 governments had already collapsed and more were falling every hour. Representative Zeftai was no longer counting coins. Instead, he was counting the days until his merchant alliance would completely collapse. His normally calm demeanor had cracked and he kept muttering numbers to himself like a man going insane. The situation is catastrophic, Chancellor Vextar announced to the remaining delegates. His voice had lost all its thunder and now sounded like an old man begging for mercy. Commodity prices have increased by 600%. Food shortages are beginning on 23 worlds. 6-star systems have declared economic emergency. Mining boss Horth slammed his rocky fist on the table, but the sound was weaker than before. My mining operations are completely stopped. Without transport ships, we cannot move materials anywhere. Our refined metals are trapped in facilities across the galaxy while our customers are screaming for deliveries. Quintar had coiled her serpent body into a tight spiral, a sign of extreme stress among her people. My fleet commanders are reporting desertion problems. Crews are abandoning their posts to return home and help their families. The military structure is breaking down. The chamber main display showed economic data that looked like a disaster movie. Every line on every graph was pointing toward complete collapse. Stock markets had lost 90% of their value. Currencies were becoming worthless so fast that some worlds had returned to barter systems. Kim Teho sat quietly in the observer section, checking his communication device occasionally but otherwise looking completely calm. His relaxed attitude was driving the aliens crazy. While their civilizations burned, he looked like a man waiting for a bus. Representative Colves approached the human ambassador with leaves that had turned completely white, a sign of total surrender among his plant people. Ambassador Kim, surely we can reach some agreement. The agricultural worlds are prepared to withdraw from the council position if humanity will restore food shipments to our starving colonies before Kim Teho could answer. Chancellor Vextar voice boomed across the chamber. Representative Colves, return to your seat immediately. The council speaks with one voice. What voice? Colves shot back angrily. The voice that has driven us to complete ruin in 5 days. My people are facing starvation because of this council error. Unity that had seemed so strong just days before was crumbling rapidly. Other delegates began voicing similar complaints. Trade Master Zeftai stood up with his 6 hands, shaking. The Merchant Alliance formally withdraws support for the council. Ultimatum, he announced. We cannot watch our member worlds collapse for the sake of political pride. Admiral Quintar hissed like an angry snake. You are all cowards. The moment things become difficult, you abandon the common cause. Mining Boss Horth. Rocky features showed deep cracks that indicated he was close to breaking common cause. This was never about common cause. This was about the old powers trying to keep the new power in line. Now look where it has led us. Kim Tae-ho finally stood and walked to the central speaking platform. The remaining delegates fell silent, hoping desperately that he had come to offer terms for surrender. Honored council members, he began. I have just received an update from Fleet Admiral Park. Perhaps you would find her report informative. The main display activated, showing Admiral Park on the bridge of her command ship. Her expression was professional, but Kim Tae-ho could see satisfaction in her eyes. Council members, Admiral Park began, I am pleased to report that human Ghost Fleet operations continue to exceed all expectations. Our blockade remains 100% effective with zero penetration by unauthorized vessels. The economic data on the secondary screens told the horrible story. Galactic trade had dropped to less than 3% of normal levels. Most remaining commerce was happening within single star systems using local ships. Furthermore, Admiral Park continued, our intelligence networks have detected the beginning of social collapse on multiple council worlds. Food riots, civil unrest, and government failures are spreading rapidly. We estimate complete political breakdown within the next 7 days. If current conditions persist. Representative Zeftai made a choking sound as he realized his home government might not exist much longer. Fexstar tried one last desperate threat. Admiral Park, your actions constitute an act of war against 12 sovereign civilizations. We demand immediate cessation of hostile activities. Admiral Park's slight smile was more terrifying than any threat. Chancellor, no hostile actions have been taken. We have not fired a single weapon or harmed any personnel. We have simply closed our borders and suspended trade with hostile powers. This is our right under galactic law. Mining Boss Horth found his voice, though it cracked with strain. But you are destroying entire civilizations. No, Admiral Park corrected, you are destroying your own civilizations. You issued an ultimatum, demanding that humanity surrender our colonies and reduce our fleet or face military destruction. We simply demonstrated that we have other options. The distinction was important and everyone knew it. Humanity had not attacked anyone. They had simply withdrawn their cooperation, and that alone was enough to bring down the galactic order. Kim Tae-ho addressed the chamber again. My government has authorized me to clarify our position. We have no desire to rule other species or control galactic politics. We simply want to be treated as equals. We want the right to expand and grow without asking permission from powers that have no authority over U.S. Representative Colvez raised a shaking appendage. What are your terms for ending this crisis? Kim Tae-ho consulted his communication device. President Lee has authorized me to present the following conditions for restoration of normal relations. The terms appeared on the main display and the aliens read them with growing amazement. Formal recognition of human territorial claims, equal representation in any future galactic government mutual defense agreements with interested parties. Most shocking of all, no tribute, no reparations, no punishment for the council members who had started this crisis. That is all. Trade Master Zeftai asked in disbelief. No territorial concessions, no tribute, no revenge. Why would we want those things? Kim Tae-ho asked with genuine puzzlement. Humanity's goal has always been peaceful coexistence and mutual prosperity. We have no interest in ruling over other species or extracting tribute through force. Admiral Quintar studied the terms carefully. These conditions are reasonable, almost suspiciously, so why offer such generous terms when you clearly hold all the power? Kim Tae-ho's slight smile returned. Admiral, I think you are beginning to understand the fundamental difference between human and council approaches to power. We do not want to rule the galaxy, we just want to be free to participate in it as equal. Debate that followed was fierce, but the outcome was inevitable. One by one, the remaining council members began voting to accept human terms. Representative Colvez voted first, followed quickly by Trade Master Zeftai. Mining Boss Horth took longer, but eventually his survival instincts won over his pride. Only Admiral Quintar and Chancellor Vextar held out until the end. When they finally voted yes, their political careers were over, but at least their civilizations would survive. Kim Tae-ho sent a brief message to Admiral Park. Trade routes are clear for restoration within hours. Human ghost fleets began standing down from their positions. Commerce resumed as quickly as it had stopped. The economic indicators that had been falling for days suddenly reversed direction. But everyone knew that things would never be the same. The Council of Worlds was finished, the old order was dead, a new galaxy was being born, and humanity would be at its center, not as conquerors but as the species that had shown everyone a better way to resolve conflicts the aliens had tried to blackmail humanity and learned that some species could not be threatened. The shockwaves from that lesson would reshape galactic civilization for centuries to come. 2 weeks after the crisis ended, the Grand Council chamber was almost empty. Only 6 alien delegates remained, and they looked like survivors of a terrible disaster. Chancellor Vexta Crystal's skin had permanently changed to a dull gray color. His political career was over, and he knew it. The economic recovery had been faster than anyone expected, but the political damage was permanent. For governments had fallen completely. 3 more were hanging on by threads. The old alliances that had kept the galaxy stable for centuries, were broken beyond repair. Kim Tae-ho sat at what used to be the central speaking platform, but now it felt more like a negotiation table. The remaining aliens were no longer giving ultimatums, they were begging for favorable trade agreements and hoping humanity would be merciful. Representative HFY, who had been the first to break ranks, was now leading the effort to create a new galactic government, one that would include humanity as an equal partner. Instead of trying to keep them as junior members, Ambassador Kim HFY said carefully, "We have drafted a proposal for a new galactic trade alliance. It would replace the old council system with something more democratic, more fair." Kim Tae-ho studied the documents on his tablet. The proposal was everything humanity had wanted: equal voting rights, fair trade policies, no restrictions on expansion or fleet size. It was a complete reversal of everything the council had demanded just 2 weeks earlier. "This is quite generous," Kim Tae-ho said, "but why should humanity trust a new alliance? What guarantee do we have that you will not simply try to limit us again when your economies recover?" The question hung in the air like a challenge. Representative Colves, who had lost his government but somehow kept his position, spoke first. "Because we have learned what happens when we underestimate humanity," he said quietly, his leaves a pale green color that indicated humility. "We thought we were dealing with a young species that could be bullied. We were wrong." Mining boss Horth nodded, his rocky features showing new cracks that had appeared during the stress of recent events. "Your ghost fleets prove that humanity has been planning for this confrontation since first contact. We cannot make that mistake again." Admiral Quinta, who had also lost her position but remained as a technical advisor, coiled nervously. "More importantly, we now understand that human power is not based on military might alone. You control the infrastructure that makes galactic civilization possible." Kim Tae-ho checked his communication device and saw a message from President Lee So-young. The Earth government had been monitoring these negotiations carefully and had reached some important decisions. "The President has authorized me to make the following announcement," Kim Tae-ho said formally. "Humanity accepts the proposal for a new galactic trade alliance. However, we have some conditions of our own." The aliens leaned forward anxiously, hoping that human demands would not be too harsh. "First," Kim Tae-ho continued, "all current territorial claims by member species will be recognized. This includes human colonies at the old council considered illegal. That was easy enough since most of the old council members were no longer in power to object. Second, any species that wishes to join the alliance must contribute to mutual defense. This includes technology sharing and coordinated military planning." Representative HFY nodded eagerly. "That is reasonable given recent events. We all understand the importance of collective security." Third, Kim Tae-ho said, "The alliance will be governed by proportional representation based on economic contribution and population. This ensures that decisions reflect the actual power relationships between species." Aliens looked uncomfortable with this condition since it would give humanity a very large voice in alliance decisions, but they were in no position to argue. Finally, Kim Tae-ho announced humanity will share ghost fleet technology with alliance members who demonstrate good faith cooperation. This includes stealth systems, manufacturing techniques, and strategic planning methods. The offer was stunning. The technology that had brought the galaxy to its knees would be shared freely with former enemies. Representative Colves' leaves turned bright yellow with amazement. "You would give us the weapons that defeated us?" he asked. "Not weapons," Kim Tae-ho corrected, "tools for mutual defense and economic cooperation. The Ghost Fleet technology has many civilian applications: manufacturing, cargo transport, deep space exploration. The military applications are just one aspect." Over the following hours they worked out the details of the new alliance. The old Council of Worlds was officially dissolved. The new Galactic Trade Alliance would be headquartered on a neutral space station built jointly by all member species. More importantly, the alliance charter included specific protections for species rights. No member could be forced to limit their expansion or reduce their fleet size. Trade routes would be managed cooperatively rather than being controlled by the strongest military power. Kim Tae-ho sent regular updates to Earth as the negotiations progressed. President Lee was pleased with the results, but she had one final instruction for her ambassador. "The President wants me to make one thing very clear," Kim Tae-ho told the assembled delegates. "Humanity has no which is a desire to dominate this alliance. We want partnership, not empire. We want cooperation, not submission." Representative HFY smiled for the first time in weeks. "Ambassador, your actions during this crisis have proven that we see now that human power is different from the old council approach. You build up rather than tear down." As the formal signing ceremony approached, Kim Tae-ho reflected on everything that had happened just 2 weeks earlier. The council had tried to force humanity into a subordinate position through threats of military destruction. They had assumed that humans would surrender rather than face overwhelming odds. Instead, they had discovered that humanity had been preparing for exactly this scenario for decades. The ghost fleets had been the key, but the real victory was in the strategic thinking. Human leaders had understood that true power in a connected galaxy came from controlling infrastructure, not territory. The signing ceremony was broadcast across the galaxy. Billions of people watched as the new alliance charter was officially adopted. The old order based on military threats and ancient privileges was dead. The new order would be based on mutual benefit and cooperative strengths. Admiral Park appeared on screen one final time to announce that human ghost fleets were being integrated into the Alliance defense network. The technology that had terrified alien civilizations would now protect them. Chancellor Vextar, who had agreed to serve as a historical advisor to the new alliance, made a short speech. His crystal skin had begun showing hints of color again as he accepted the new reality. 2 weeks ago he said, "I believed that the old ways were the only ways. I thought that maintaining the traditional balance of power was worth any cost. I was wrong. The galaxy is changing and we must change with it or be left behind." Kim Tae-ho stood to give the closing address as humanity's senior representative to the new alliance. "The council tried to blackmail humanity into submission," he said, "but their ultimatum created something better than what we had before. It forced us to demonstrate that cooperation is stronger than coercion, that building together is better than tearing each other down." The shockwaves from the council failed blackmail attempt would indeed reshape galactic civilization, but instead of creating a human empire, they had created something unprecedented, a truly cooperative galactic community where all species could prosper together. As Kim Tae-ho prepared to return to Earth, he knew that the real work was just beginning. Building the new alliance would take years, but for the first time in galactic history, all the major powers were working toward the same goal, a future where strength came from unity rather than domination. The galaxy would never be the same, and that was exactly what humanity had always wanted.